But let's start first, Coach. Just general thoughts heading into the 2021 season.
Well, as everybody has echoed throughout the morning, it's exciting to be this close to getting started and playing baseball again. Everything came to an end so quickly last year that it's created a lot of anticipation and excitement in a good way for all of these young men and the coaching staffs as myself in general. So I know my assistants and I are extremely excited about whatever the season holds, and just trying to make sure that we have our kids prepared both physically and mentally for all that this spring's going to bring. There's going to be differences. There's going to be some new issues with the protocols and the travel and some of these other things that we have to try to plan for and strategize to the best of our ability. So, but to get on the field, to get between the lines and have the opportunity to play the game again, that's the part that they're most excited about. That's why all these young men are in these different universities is they came to try to do the thing that they are passionate about and love the most while they're getting a good education.
Thanks, Coach. Again, if anybody has a question, let me know down in the chat and I'll call on you. I sort of asked Coach Skirka and Murray this question too. They were picked third in the preseason poll. I preferenced it by saying polls are sort of meaningless, even though I'm the one that puts them out for the conference. But you all were picked first. The first time since joining the OVC, you were picked first. I know that won't translate to on the field, but just talk about that and maybe the respect from the other voters.
Well, we're honored by that, that vote that other people have recognized. Essentially, the roster that we had last year, the good start that we got off to last year, it's tempered though by the fact that we were only last season was so short. There's not a huge body of work there to really reflect upon or to deal with. So for us, we have to keep it in proper perspective. There's no doubt about that. And every season is going to be different. But it's something that we appreciate the recognition and the honor of what our roster looks like, what our kids have worked hard towards. But as you mentioned, Kyle, the preseason polls aren't the ones that really matter. And we keep it in that proper perspective as well, too. It's going to be decided between the foul lines, and that's the beauty of the game.
Well, let me ask this then about last year. You all were off to a 14-3 start. You were receiving votes in some of the polls. You won multiple games in a row when the season ended, and also just comeback wins, last at bat wins. So talk a little bit about that, but more how's that? I know it's a different season. How's that translate to this year?
Well, a lot of those same kids are back from last year's roster. I think we've got 5 that have moved on and with life and are pursuing other things now. But we've got a couple of our seniors back from last year's rosters, guys that are going to help us give us good depth in the bullpen. They're going to contribute a lot for us this year in Justin Folks and Michael Motter. But our leadership, we've got a good part of our leadership back from last year as well too. And so every year is going to be different. We always are trying to create that type of chemistry, and we're always trying to create that type of mental toughness that our kids kind of showed last year and resolved. But there's so much, baseball's a fortuitous game. There's a lot of good fortune, and we had a lot of things that went our way during those first 17 games last year. So this year we got to go out and try to recreate the same type of magic that we had going as the season came abruptly to an end last year, for sure.
Let's go to Van Stokes for a question. Van, go ahead.
There you go. My apologies.
Hey, Van.
How are you?
Good.
Coach, you talked about leadership being key. Of course, Joshua South, you got the OVC Preseason Pitcher of the Year, providing leadership on the mound, but you've also got this young player called Logan Jarvis in the field and at the plate, providing leadership. Talk about the leadership that they each bring, but when you talk about Logan, talk about the challenge or the rewards or the approach, perspective, if you will, of coaching your son.
Yes, sir. Well, with Josh South and Jackson Campbell as captains, Logan's also a captain, but with those 2 guys, you bring just unbelievable. All 3 of those guys are 3 of our hardest workers. They show up early. They have tremendous amount of talent and abilities, and of course, with Josh South, I mean, he's robotic as far as his mentality. He never displays a great deal of emotion either way, and just goes about his business. Jackson Campbell is a little bit more of an emotional leader for us, which I think you need that element as well too. He and Logan provide some of that aspect of it, but they all three are not only good leaders in between the white lines for us, but they lead in the weight room as well. They lead on the bus. They lead in the dugout. They do it the right way. As far as coaching my son, Van, I would actually I give him more credit than I do to myself as far as the way he's dealt with it. Logan's been outstanding. It's been my honor. It's been my extreme thrill to have my son on my roster and to have him be contributing and be a part of our program. He grew up in Belmont baseball. He was on road trips. All three of my sons would travel with us from a young age. They'd go on road trips. They'd be in the dugout. They'd be bat boys. They'd serve in every capacity, as just being a part of it and being around it. And to him, have him in uniform, have him be elected by his teammates as a captain, and have him be a contributor, in any way to our program. It's a thrill of a lifetime, but I have to try to keep it in perspective. And as I've always said, and I've always told Logan, even before when he chose to come here, that my goal was to try to treat him like I did every other player, and to treat every other player like they were my son. And I had the good fortune of coaching my youngest brother, Jamie, back 35, 40 years ago. When I first started coaching, he was actually on the roster of the team that I became, the junior college that I became the head coach at. So he broke me in for that, and coaching somebody that you're that closely related to. So they have both, I give both of those guys a lot of credit for putting up with me, because, coaching player relationship many times can be an adversarial relationship. And Logan has handled that extremely well, as my brother Jamie did as well too. But thank you.
It's such a unique situation that I just want you to know, I realize, I have 3 sons myself, that it's almost too difficult to put into words.
Yes, sir. I think about it a lot, and you love them with all of your heart, but at the same time too, they've got to earn everything that they get. And so it's a delicate balance, and my players have handled that extremely well, and my son has handled that very well as well. But thank you for the question.
Van asked you about, he mentioned Joshua South, who was the preseason pitcher of the year. But if you look at last year's stats, your team ERA was 3.38 in those 17 games. David, that's probably going to be a strength for you again. Talk about just building that rotation on some and the bullpen with some of those pitchers you have.
Well, I feel really good about our pitching staff. A lot of that ERA last year was also attributed to the defense that we have. Aaron Smith and Cale Henneman, my 2 assistant coaches that cover the outfielders and the infielders, have done a tremendous job in developing that defense, improving our defense, and making it a really strong aspect of it. But our pitching staff is as good as it's ever been in my time here. I feel like, from a depth standpoint and from front line, not only starters, but also our bullpen and our bullpen depth. Our plan and our approach, I give all of the credit to that to Caleb Longshore and the plan that he has implemented and the process that he has put these guys through. And he's done a tremendous job of getting them all on the same page, understanding what their strengths and weaknesses are, how to go about putting together a plan to accentuate their strengths and weaknesses. And we stick with that plan. And he deserves a tremendous amount of credit for that pitching staff and what they're capable of doing. The proof will be in the pudding for all of these things as we get out there on the field. It'll all shake out, and that'll be determining what happens. But man, isn't it just glorious that we're actually talking about getting on the field and getting an opportunity to do some of these things again? That's what I'm excited about.
One follow-up, and then we'll let you go with that. And I just lost my question. It was about pitching. Oh, darn.
Well, Kyle Brennan, I know, is another aspect that I didn't mention specifically. He's a big part of our bullpen and a big part of our plan going into any weekend. He's such a perfect mentality. unselfish, wants to get the job done out there on the mound for sure for us as a closer.
I remembered. So UT Martin, Ryan Jenkins, he was talking about sometimes OVC is considered an offensive league, but he's always been, he said, was impressed with the amount of top starters, Friday night starters, if you will. Can you just talk about, now that you've been to OVC a while, what you've seen as far as there is a lot of offense, but the talent level pitching wise is there too?
Well, I think the talent level is very relevant to almost any of the other mid-level leagues that I've looked at, been in, played, coached, whatever. Some of the parks can make it into an offensive league at times. I do believe that. There's no denial of that. Our park can play small on hot days and play really, really big on cold days. So those are definitely factors in numbers. But numbers don't really always show what the talent is, in my opinion. And I think it's an extremely talented league. I think a lot of that reflects to this, that there's a lot of depth in the coaching staffs within this league. I look at these head coaches and their assistants and their staffs. And after doing this for 39 years, I'm telling you, there's just a lot of really good coaches in this league. They're well organized. They do a tremendous job of recruiting. They try to improve their facilities to enhance recruiting throughout the league. You look at the names and the places that some of these guys have been and come from, it kind of speaks for itself. And then you've got, so many veteran coaches that are in the league as well right now that have gotten it done and done a great job at a lot of different levels and a lot of different places. It's a good league, and there's a reason for that. And I look to a lot of these opposing coaches and what they do and the way they go about their business. But talent-wise, this league, there's so much of it that I think is at times underrated from a talent standpoint, both on the mound and at the plate.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you taking a little bit of time this morning to join us, and best of luck to your team this year, and best of health and weather too.
Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all's questions, and it's good to get a chance to get back to this part of the season for sure.